He hid my medication while I was asleep. Am I the a-hole for being furious after my boyfriend hid my medication while I was asleep? My boyfriend and I had been together for 2 years, and we'd lived together for most of that time. We had what I thought was a great relationship, and we were even talking about getting married and starting a future together. I have an autoimmune disease and had recently been dealing with kidney stones. The pain was terrible, but I don't tolerate strong pain medication very well because it makes me itch and throw up. The doctors prescribed me a low dose of tramadol since it was supposed to be easier on me. I actually had to convince them not to give me anything stronger. About 2 weeks before all this happened, I had one of my usual migraines. I've had diagnosed migraines since I was 14. I decided to take one tramadol for the headache. My boyfriend knew because I was asking him where the Benadryl and Dramamine were to help with the side effects. He told me he wished I hadn't taken it because the doctor prescribed it specifically for kidney stone pain. I admitted maybe it wasn't the best choice, but I was in a lot of pain, and it made sense to me at the time. A few days later, I was cleaning out my bathroom drawer. I have several medications for my autoimmune condition, so old prescription bottles pile up. While cleaning, I noticed the bottle of tramadol was missing. I figured I'd accidentally thrown it away. That night, I mentioned to my boyfriend that I must have tossed out an entire bottle of medication by mistake. That's when he admitted he hadn't. He told me he'd hidden it. Apparently, after I fell asleep the night I'd taken one pill for my migraine, he went into my drawer, took the medication, and hid it because he thought I'd misused it and might abuse it in the future. For some background, my boyfriend is straight edge. He doesn't drink, smoke, or use drugs. Years before we met, back in college, I drank more than I probably should have, and occasionally smoked marijuana. Nothing extreme, and I eventually grew out of it. Now I might have one drink a month, if that. I couldn't understand why he suddenly thought I was going to start abusing prescription medication, especially considering I can barely tolerate taking it in the first place. I was furious. Not because I desperately needed the medication, but because he made the decision for me without even talking to me. He waited until I was asleep, searched through my things, took medication prescribed to me, and hid it. It felt controlling. It felt paternalistic. And it made me wonder what else he thought he had the right to control. I tried talking to him about it, but he didn't really have an answer. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Make sure you follow for more videos posted daily. People online had some very strong opinions. One commenter said, "He thinks he knows better than you about medication. He doesn't even understand. That's a massive red flag." Another commenter shared their own experience dating someone similar. They said their partner once yelled at them for smoking marijuana at their own birthday party, then claimed to forgive them afterward. They realized they weren't being treated like an equal partner. Another commenter pointed out something I hadn't even considered. They explained that tramadol is a pain medication. I had pain. I took one pill exactly as prescribed and stayed within the dosing instructions. According to them, there was nothing inappropriate about using leftover pain medication for another painful condition like a migraine. Then they asked me something that really made me think. They wondered if my boyfriend had always judged my past drinking and marijuana use. Looking back, they were right. Even my occasional drink had become less frequent because of him. Sometimes we'd go out, and he'd tell me I could have 2 drinks, but not 3, and I actually felt guilty about it. He'd even told me that if we'd met in college, he wouldn't have liked me because of how much I partied back then. A lot of people also asked if he'd at least returned my medication. The answer was no. We'd talked the night before, but the next morning he'd already left for work. I had no idea where he'd hidden it. I wasn't going to tear apart the house looking for it because, honestly, that wasn't the point. The real issue wasn't losing the medication. It was losing trust. Update. 2 days later, I honestly didn't expect so many people to respond. Reading everyone's comments helped me realize I wasn't overreacting. When my boyfriend came home from work the day I made the post, I told him we needed to have a serious conversation. He admitted he should have asked me first and apologized for hiding the medication. But he still believed he'd been justified. Then he said something I never expected. He told me this was the first disagreement where he felt like we weren't on the same side anymore. And because of that, he thought we should break up. I was completely blindsided. Just one day before I found out he'd hidden my medication, we'd been talking in detail about getting married. Now he suddenly believed there was no future for us. He went to stay with his parents for the weekend, which had already been planned. While he was gone, I packed my belongings. I even found a small apartment I could barely afford and put down a deposit. I told him that if he was truly certain about ending things, I'd sign the paperwork and move out. Since I wasn't on the lease and couldn't afford the house on my own, I was the one who had to leave. He said he was only about 60% sure he wanted to break up. But he didn't see any other option. I know many people probably think I should be relieved. But I wasn't. I was devastated. Because of past trauma, I'd never imagined I'd trust someone enough to live with them, let alone marry them or have children together. He was the person who convinced me those dreams were possible. Now everything we built together was falling apart. I spent the next 2 days crying, sleeping, and trying to pack whenever I could. To make everything even harder, my grandmother was in the hospital receiving her last rites. I felt like my entire world was collapsing at once. So tell me, am I the a-hole?